Has Pep Guardiola finally been figured out? For the second consecutive season, Manchester City's defensive structure looks vulnerable. And the goals that they've conceded aren't accidents. Spurs and Brighton exposed the exact same flaw in the exact same way. But here's the catch. Guardiola has already changed his staff, hiring Pep Lijnders as his main assistant coach to solve pressing issues, and signed Donnarumma, a goalkeeper who doesn't fit his traditional philosophy. Today we'll break down Spurs' opening goal, Brighton's second, and the tactical DNA of those goals, and the answer to one key question. Are these cracks in Guardiola's system or the first signs of a new tactical evolution? Welcome back to Football Manager Insider. Now let's start with Spurs. Their opener was a classic example of City's press being turned against them. City set up in their usual 4-4-2 press with Haaland and Oscar Bob leading the line. The idea was simple: block central access and funnel Spurs wide. But this is where the weakness emerges. Once Spurs worked the ball towards the flank, City's press wasn't as sharp. Marmoush didn't close down that passing lane, and that delay gave Spurs the escape route that they needed. From there, the knock-on effect begins. Nathan Ake had already stepped high to engage, which left him disconnected from the rest of the back line. That stretched City into an awkward back three, with Stones and Diaz forced to shuffle across. That trigger moment is Stones slipping as he tries to step off for offside. That small misstep leaves Spurs with a free runner bursting through the channel. And suddenly, their centre-backs are exposed, exactly what Guardiola wants to avoid. Fast forward a week later, and Brighton punished the same weakness. This time it's Rico Lewis caught too high, but the pattern was identical. Wide pass played out from pressure, and City couldn't press fast enough. Brighton player receives it, turns, and drives. Again, the fullback stepping out leaves City with three across the back. One centre-back is pulled wide to cover, and the space between the defenders opens up. Brighton's runner bursts into the channel, and suddenly City's line is broken. Look at the positioning of the left back here. Instead of tucking inside to cover centrally, he's holding a wider starting point. On paper, it gives City coverage against the winger, but in practice, it leaves too much horizontal space between the fullback and the centre-back. The tactical detail here is about timing. If the left back recognises the trigger, Lewis stepping high, then he has to tuck in immediately to protect the half space. That adjustment shuts off the vertical pass and forces Brighton to recycle wide. Instead, however, City are stretched across the pitch and the ball into the channel slices them apart. This repetition across the two matches shows that it's not coincidence. City's fullbacks are being asked to hold that aggressive starting position, but when the midfield line is bypassed, they're too far away from their centre-backs to protect the gaps. Against Spurs, it was Ake caught too high. Against Brighton, it was the same picture on the opposite side. But here's where it gets interesting, because Guardiola knows he has a problem. That's why Pep Lijnders is here. Lijnders built his reputation at Liverpool on counter-pressing and hyper-aggressive high lines. City's 4-0 win against Wolves showed us glimpses of that philosophy in action. Guardiola is trading stability for aggression, betting that once the press clicks, those goals conceded will disappear. And then there's Gianluigi Donnarumma. The Donnarumma signing is fascinating because statistically and stylistically, he's the complete opposite of what Pep Guardiola usually demands from his goalkeepers. At PSG, Donnarumma's passing accuracy in Ligue 1 averaged around 82%, significantly lower than Ederson, who regularly sits around 90 to 92% in the Premier League. More importantly, Donnarumma rarely attempts line-breaking passes into midfield, less than 2 progressive passes per 90 compared to Ederson's between 6 to 8 per 90. That immediately tells you Pep isn't looking at him as a build-up hub. Instead, Donnarumma excels in one area where Ederson has sometimes been criticised: pure shot stopping. His shot expected goals saved has been positive for the past 3 seasons, meaning he consistently prevents more goals than the average keeper would from the same shots. He saves close-range efforts with his massive frame, and he's also comfortable in chaotic penalty box situations. In other words, he's a goalkeeper built to survive volume, not one to dictate rhythm. Tactically, this points to a subtle evolution, or maybe a compromise in Guardiola's thinking. City's defensive line has been stretched more often this season, leaving gaps that the opposition forwards exploit. That naturally increases the quality of shots against them. By moving for Donnarumma, Pep might be acknowledging that his defenders can't always suffocate space in time, so he needs a goalkeeper who can erase high-quality chances after the structure is broken. The problem? In possession, City may lose fluency. Donnarumma's reluctance to split centre-backs or disguise short passes means City could be forced into more direct build-up sequences, bypassing the goalkeeper entirely. That changes the rhythm of City's positional play, because so much of their controlled dominance in recent years began with Ederson baiting the press and then piercing it with the vertical pass. With Donnarumma, you gain defensive insurance, but at the sacrifice of a degree of possession manipulation. Either way, this weekend will tell us more than any other training ground statement or press conference ever could. So, has Pep Guardiola been figured out? Spurs and Brighton suggest yes, the same tactical flaw was punished twice in a week. But the real story might be more complex, with Leinders reshaping with the press and Donnarumma changing the profile of the goalkeeper, and with the legendary Pep Guardiola experimenting once again. City could just be in the middle of another tactical revolution. The danger for everyone else is simple. Every time Guardiola has been questioned before, he's found an answer.
He's designed a style of football which is being revered, copied and mirrored.
The only question now is whether these weaknesses are the start of a decline or the painful early steps towards another evolution. And that's why all eyes will be on Sunday's Manchester derby. United thrive in transitional moments in exactly the zones where City have been bleeding chances. If Guardiola's system cracks again, the noise around Pep being figured out will only get louder. And if the tactical tweaks hold though, it could be the turning point in City's season. And if you want to see how a defensive pressing masterclass really looks like, check out my breakdown of Liverpool versus Arsenal. Elite defensive battle between Arne Slot and Mikel Arteta. It's a perfect contrast. Two teams suffocating space, while City are struggling to protect theirs. Now make sure you like, comment, and especially subscribe so you can watch my YouTube video analysing the Manchester derby this weekend. Look forward to seeing you then. Until next time, stay sharp, stay tactical.